The earth, as we know it today, is very sick. In fact, very sick.
Yes, I'm sure by now everybody is aware of climate change. Now, the consequences of such change, the causes of such change, they are all testimonies to exactly what we are saying, that so much abuse has been meted on the environment, and the environment is reacting. So we need to do more. We need to change our attitudes as far as the abuse on the environment or misuse of the environment is concerned. Global warming, or let me say climate change, or all other environmental menaces don't have international boundaries. Whatever happens in far, far places will definitely get us here. So it's not a matter of we don't do it, so it's not coming here. No. The little you do also have an effect on what we follow. It has a kind of spiral effect. So don't underrate the little we do in terms of environmental abuse. It has negative consequences, and that is exactly what we are paying now.
The drylands of northern Nigeria are amongst the most affected in terms of desertification and land degradation in Africa. More than 6 million hectares of productive land is lost to degradation annually. High population growth rates, extensive deforestation, desertification and land use pressures, greater frequencies and intensities of drought, coupled with climate change and other anthropogenic drivers, continue to undermine the resilience of dryland communities in northern Nigeria. The forces continue to pose threats to human survival, security, and sustainable livelihood in these regions. The EverGreening Network for Forest and Land Restoration, known as ENFORLAR, is a non-profit organization. ENFORLAR is also a member of the Global EverGreening Alliance with a strong passion to restore landscapes and ecosystems. The strengthening of local actions on restoration of forest landscape, degraded lands and ecosystems across Nigeria and the African continent has been the focus of ENFORLAR. The network provides platform to support and facilitate massive environmental restoration and initiate sustainable agricultural practices, thereby increasing biodiversity to mitigate and adapt the impacts of climate change at a global scale. ENFORLAR leverages on community knowledge and capacities by reaching out to local and state governments, community-based organizations, NGOs, research institutions, and universities at a national and subnational levels. The core mission of ENFORLAR is to improve ecosystem, restore degraded lands, and secure livelihoods. Thus, her main objectives are: first, to promote evergreening practices across agro-ecosystems and landscapes; 2, to empower communities, especially women and youth, with knowledge and skills in sustainable land management; thirdly, to create massive awareness on cost-effective and low-technology ephemeral and evergreening practices in dryland areas; fourth, to scale up wider adoption of ephemeral in drylands based on existing local practices and knowledge; fifth, to empower local farmers and communities with long-term land management practices for sustainable rural livelihood and conflict mitigation.
I am Kelechi Eleanya, the team leader for the EverGreening Network for Forest and Land Restoration in Nigeria, a member of the Global EverGreening Alliance. And basically what we work on is work with communities to see how we can restore degraded lands. forests, rangelands, grasslands, and that is a major need for the Sahel region in Africa, for which Nigeria falls into that group in the northern states of Nigeria. So basically we work with communities, we work with state governments, even at the federal level, to harness opportunities for land restoration and help them to proceed with actions on the ground.
The Abuja Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration FMNR launch experience at the German Embassy accorded stakeholders in the government and non-government parastatal to understand the mission of the EverGreening Network for forest and land restoration in Nigeria and the role the German Embassy is playing to support the cause.
Some trees on their farmland, and with that, after the farming season, those farmers had a higher yield than anywhere on the ground. And these were migrant farmers who would travel to maybe Nigeria and they came back after some time just to plant and go back. They were wondering what kind of magic are these guys doing? So it went on and on, but then they went to check and realized that these guys were, the reason why they had more yield was because one, the trees on the farm helped to shield their seeds from when the wind comes. Seed is not going to so you have to come and plant and plant to reduce the wastage. And also it helped to release nutrients from the leaves, forks and all that, and mulching that prevented more moisture from leaving the ground.
But from what I understood then, in the majority of cases, it was not about planting a new tree. It was about allowing to grow what's already in there. You know how farmers have this thing like, let me make this very clear and very neat and very clean. And that deprives the land from all the nutrients, basically. So allowing to grow what is there. And then, yes, there was a lot of training on pruning the trees to the desired level. Because if the shade now gets too much, your produce doesn't grow underneath. So yes, and I also know that once they became successful and the trees started growing, then they needed to form village committees to fight off the guys who would cut down those little trees for firewood.
This launch coincided with the World Day to combat desertification and drought.
Regeneration, and hope that we have many partners in this, and you encourage everybody not to wait. It doesn't cost money, as we have heard. Just go and do it, and when you have success, others will follow your example. This is how it often works. So, Hirochi, good luck with this.
As a first step to expose stakeholders to sustainable land management practices, the team organized a 3-day learning visit to FMNR and agroforestry sites in Maradi and Zender regions of Niger Republic. Participants gained first-hand knowledge of farmers' approaches to land restoration, including the role of other community groups and governments. Dansaga village played a major host to the team. After the trip to Niger Republic, it was quickly followed by a roundtable discussion which centered on lessons learned and the next action step to be taken in restoring the degraded lands in northern Nigeria. Major actors to this regard played very important roles.
And that is why it is succeeding in Niger, because it's not exhausting the cash or energy much of the people, because all you need to do, once the farmers are sensitized, they see the way you see it, naturally they begin to take care of these things. Then the land restoration occurs. Then they will begin to reap. And that is why I would rather suggest that we have maybe pilot projects in these states
I agree with Prof. Let us take a concrete steps to where we are going to. If you are working in the Ministry of Agric, where your responsibility is to pot fields, stack and raise tree seedlings, please go ahead. But that means you have two approaches to continue.
Or strong lobby groups that will penetrate the government to bring about the political will to achieve this.
The Environment for Peace Conference was a partnership between the Interfaith Mediation Center, IMC, in Kaduna State and the EverGreening Network for Forest and Land Restoration to create a platform for peaceful coexistence between farmers and herders to sustain the environment using religious and traditional leaders as entry points.
Because whether we like it or not, the issue of climate change is real. We see it in our communities. We see it in our everyday lives.
From Landsat imagery derived. This lectured in 1963. This lectured in 1973. This is lectured in 1987. This is lectured in 1997. And this is lectured in 2001. This is 2019. You can imagine. Because there is no sign that is increasing. Am I right? Because even the feeder rivers are also reducing.
I honor this invitation because I feel this is the right time. We have to start doing something, and we need to join forces, both from the Muslims and Christians, to ensure that something is done. Our people are educated on the danger on these issues of climate change, which we can do something now. And when we do something now, it will save now and it will also save the future.
In that conference, participants were exposed to the multiple threats of land degradation in dryland communities.
The journey of reconciliation between myself and my colleagues, Pastor Dr. James Mobawe and myself. Pastor Dr. James Mobawe is a Christian priest with whom I have a past. We walked through a very extensive negative past where we have a deep-rooted hate among ourselves, and we fought our two communities on the behalf of each other, fighting for and on behalf of our communities. Caused a lot of pains and destructions of our sacred places during the past. But suddenly we have a turning point, and we began to work for peace and reconciliation in our community. We realize that what is happening today, it has a connection to do with our environment, access to resources, because of depleting nature of our resources in our country. The Muslims, whose majority are pastoralists, and the Christian in Kaduna State, with the dominant majority in the southern part, are Christians. So this important phenomenon gave rise, and one of the land that gave rise to the conflict in Kaduna, where become the pastoralists and the farmers, and in the past, and it become ethnic and religious dimension during the past. We walked through those pains to build reconciliation, and in the last 25 years, we have successful story to tell of reconciliation, not only in Kaduna State, which we did successfully during the Sharia crisis in 2000, that the reconciliation process brought almost 9 good years of a peaceful reconciliation without bloodshed anymore in Kaduna, until post-2011 electoral violence. And the same applies in the southern part of Godogodo Chiefdom, which up to today, the farmers and the pastoralists have lived in peace as a result of our interventions. And in Plateau State, Yelwa Shandam has, from 2005 to date, Yelwa Shandam, one of the epicenter of conflict and crisis within the Muslim and Christian in Plateau, have become a role model of peaceful coexistence in Shandam local government in southern senatorial zone of Plateau State. And today, the Plateau State government, as a result of our work, were able to come out and declare a day of forgiveness, and a garden of forgiveness planted, and a public holiday, a bank holiday was declared in Plateau State. as a result of our work for building bridges of reconciliation. And doing that and see that successful, important aspect, then we move into looking at the issue of climate change and the consequence and attendant consequences on dry land, on pastoralist farmers' engagement as a result of access to resources, water, grazing land, grazing ground, and farming points for our communities. So we look at what can we do in order to add, to complement effort of government and other international developmental agencies such as EverGreening Global Alliances and its networks, and including other government initiatives, to be able to work together with this body, with the Interfaith Mediation Center, to be able to facilitate a process of building reconciliation and creating alternatives to this inconsistent conflict that is happening between the pastoralists and the farmers. Well, as we have said earlier and clearly, today we are able, as a result of that initiative between the EverGreening Network and for Global Alliances with the Interfaith Mediation Center, we brought together 11 representatives of higher religious institutions and bodies and 11 Christian representatives of various institutions and bodies together, 22 of them, to look at the issue and look at what, from the lenses of their faith and traditions, how can they do to facilitate a process of greening our environment, facilitate a process of a mechanism for mitigating pastoralist farmers' conflict, and regreening the environment for the farmers and the pastoralists together. And this have been agreed. This has agreed and this has worked effectively. And today, one of the most important success stories that I have in mind to share is that these religious leaders have agreed to work together as a network, to form a strong network with a strong front for advocacy in all this, what you call the flashpoint state, what you call the state on the firing line across the northern Nigeria. This is an important phenomenon, to have a strong network of religious leaders, be able to carry a strong advocacy, to serve as advocacy tools in facilitating policy change and in facilitating a local initiative of engagement for farmers through management of their natural resource regenerations in our community. That is the expected result. And I hope and I believe, as the farmers and the pastoral respect religious leaders and institutions, they will serve as a means towards attaining the common objective goal that will add value to sustainable development goals indices, especially that has to do with our nature, the environment, and all the Sahel region with this conflict, to create a new direction. The traditional institutions were involved, and you have from the two traditional institutions of the Sokoto Caliphate, where the Sadoki Sokoto represented him here and is working with the Sultan Peace Foundation and his Zakat Commission to help us facilitate this. And you see the Emir of Kano, able representation here, who also commit themselves to be part of this process, working with religious leaders. So you have religious and traditional institutions facilitating the process of finding a sustainable way that we can work together, not only to regreen, but to engage, to have community engage in tree planting across community, so that we can re-echo the Niger experience. We want to re-echo the Niger experiences of successful experiences. We want to replay the Burkina Faso, Musa, the man who stopped the desert experiences, and be able to say, in Nigeria, we are bound to stop the desert. With the support of EverGreening Network and the Interfaith Mediation Center, with this network of religious leaders and traditional institutions, we have a story to tell.
The conference was a great success as religious leaders rose with a common goal to regreen the environment as a matter of urgency.
Wow, this is interesting. So the vision, let me start with the Global Alliance. They have been working across the African continent, Asia, and parts of America to do the same thing, to bring together organizations that have the same purpose, to regreen the earth, make agriculture more sustainable, And we started with what we call the Evergreen Agriculture Partnership, which was a partnership that brought together major organizations that have an interest in land restoration, in food security, meaning that we wanted to promote more sustainable agriculture. And one of the key aspects of doing this was to bring together these organizations and help them and make them help communities to promote trees on farm, which act as a major avenue to create sustainable farming systems, because the trees that were introduced help to fix nitrogen into the soil, thereby making the soil much more nutrient strong and productive. So that partnership grew, and it has now become the Global EverGreening Alliance, with much more member organizations across the world that are now leading the process. So back in 2017 in Washington, D.C., I met with Ambassador Dennis Garrity, and we began to discuss the possibilities of coming home to Nigeria to help to fight desertification. In that meeting, we resolved that there is a need to sensitize the government, stakeholders, and move on with much more definite interventions. So this led us to host a workshop that brought together major stakeholders, and that was just last year in June in Katsina, where we hosted the first Dryland restoration conference in northern Nigeria. That conference gave birth to what we are moving on with today, because all the organizations, the participants that were drawn from academia, drawn from the NGO world, drawn from the government, drawn from the religious organizations, they came together and said there is a need to push for land restoration in northern Nigeria as a matter of urgency. With that, we had the platform to begin to source for organizations that can support the declaration from that meeting. It was a strong declaration that proposed that there was a need to set up a massive move to restore the drylands. So we decided to create this movement, and now we have different organizations that are trying to come on board. The government is funding. Government is funding the states to do what they're doing, and we also have support from the government of Germany for 1 year to lead an evergreen movement in northern Nigeria. So that is the history, and that's where we are today. We're just about a year old in terms of the new alliance, because this is a new movement. So moving from the Evergreen Agriculture Partnership, which has been on for over a decade, to the Global EverGreening Alliance is just about a year. In fact, we held our first annual general meeting a few months ago. So we're in the second year now of the alliance, and we are kind of transforming largely because even in New York this September we launched the EverGreening the Earth campaign, which is one of the largest campaigns with the largest connections of organizations from across the world, from Asia, from Africa, from the Americas, from Australia, and we are moving with one goal: how can we make the earth green? And the campaign says green up to cool down. And it's interesting because we have buy-in from even the UNDP and several multilateral and multinational organizations for this.
Like I told you, I heard of it. My first contact with EverGreening Global Alliance was in 2018 when we had that first conference. But for an organization that is engaged in land restoration in this part of the country, much has been achieved, because beyond at the conference in Katsina, conference proceedings, and not only that, we had communique, and the communique was so succinct, precise, and yet detailed on exactly what was to be achieved. The goals were set, the the conference actually rose up with certain decisions. And that first conference, the attendance was impressive. A lot of people from our stakeholders from the states, the borderline states, as we call them, were present, from Sokoto through Borno. And many went back to their stations determined to begin active collaboration with the Alliance in terms of regreening the environment. After that, we went to Niger to understudy the farmer-managed natural regeneration that is going on there, which has won global acclaim for its successes, and not only for its successes, for its visible, tangible successes, because the trees are there, the regenerated trees are there to be seen, and they are still growing. The farmers were there to testify of the success of that program, and a lot of the farmers, in fact all the farmers, have been empowered, and also we saw the multiplier effect, not only in terms of restoration of the environment, but and also not only in terms of income, but also exposure of the local farmers. After that, we had another conference this year in Kano, where the religious perspective, because the EverGreening Alliance discovered that opinion leaders, stakeholders that can influence, and when you talk of influencing, religious leaders in this part of the world have the greatest influence on a larger population of people. So in that conference, we met again, and many of sheikhs, imams, pastors, reverends, and overseers were around. They also rose from that conference with a determination to mobilize their members in tree planting. And in this conference, some have testified, some from the states have testified that they have started the process, and also the interfaith component has also been strongly driven because of the motivation from the EverGreening Alliance.
The agroforestry plantation model in Jodori village in Gamawa local government on Bauchi state was designed to show and prove that with the right approach to dryland restoration, regreening the landscapes of northern Nigeria that is threatened by desert encroachment and desertification is a possibility. Within a period of 6 months, the project recorded great success in the raising of tree seedlings. It has been noted that besides drought, the major determining factor to the survival of tree seedlings at its tender stage is that of animal browsing. Therefore, the project provided a cattle fencing round the piece of land allocated for the planting model.
Yes, the seedlings were planted. We actually planted them, but when we started, like I said, it was a farm. It was a soya bean farm with the Benny seed. So when we came, we said we should plant in the farm, so that while they take care of the farm, it will also help the seedlings to grow. So that was what happened. Yes, we took about the size of a hectare and a quarter. That's the size of the area, the land size. And after fencing it, as you can see, with cattle fence, then we planted for a hectare, given 5 by 5 meters gap, we planted, but because it's a hectare and a quarter, we planted close to 1,000 trees, seedlings here, and as you can see, the story. So how would you rate what's the survival rate? What the survival rate I can say is marvelous. In fact, it's 90-something% because so far, it's only few that I could not see that did not stand. But so far, as you can see, it's a success story. Well, this species, as a director, or popularly called neem, or dogoyaro, is actually not an indigenous species, it's an exotic species. But why it is here is because it thrives very well here. It survives harsh conditions. When you come here around April, you won't believe what you are seeing. This place suffers a lot of rain deficit, and then rain comes late and it goes early. So you need species that will be able to withstand such situations. That's the reason behind choosing this neem tree. That's why we planted it here. It doesn't actually neem that we planted. We also planted, eucalyptus. Yes, because that's another tree that can survive such conditions. This particular part of Bauchi is one of the places that are prone to desertification. They suffer desert encroachment. If you look around, you will see the sparseness of the vegetation. And then for you to achieve anything, if you want to contribute in controlling desertification, you need to plant trees that will be able to survive this rain deficit. This neem, eucalyptus, and others like that. So we chose eucalyptus because of its advantage here. This is marvelous. Like I said, I don't know whether it has been done elsewhere, but here you can see, apart from the trees surviving here, the place is not just surviving, the place has been fenced and the trees are doing well. And we could say over 95% success. This is a success story as far as tree planting is concerned. In recent time, I've not seen something like this. Though I've been participating in projects like this, we've had similar projects, but this is a clear case of success story because almost all the seedlings are doing well, as you can see.
The second Dryland Restoration Conference held in Kano State encapsulated all activities of the EverGreening Network for forest and land restoration within a 12-month period.
You will find only 2 cartoons can merge. How can we curtail this problem?
Second, we are all aware of what FMNR is all about.
Madam Land.
Besides the conference being studded with seasoned actors, stakeholders, academia, religious leaders, government officials, traditional leaders, and civil society organizations, the conference also featured 2 leading global experts, Dr. Dennis P. Garrity, Dryland Ambassador, UNCCD, Chairperson Global EverGreening Alliance, former Director General, World Agroforestry Center, and Dr. Tony Ronaldo, 2018 Rights Livelihood Award laureate, often referred to as the father of FMNR. Both gave their own contributions and support from their wealth of knowledge and experiences.
All kinds of crop and tree systems around the world. This happens to be a coconut plantation in Sri Lanka, a country which has commercialized the production of electrical power in a number of small, medium, and large-scale power plants using the surplus wood produced while farmers are fertilizing their crops with the leguminous shrubs.
I first stepped foot on African soil 39 years ago, and it was at Kano International Airport, so perhaps it's appropriate for me to be addressing you today. From there I moved to Niger Republic, and immediately I was confronted by a barren landscape. I like to call Sesabin Zamani a no-regrets technology. In 30 years of teaching this method worldwide, nobody has ever grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and said, "Tony, you ruined my farm, you ruined my life." Only blessing, only restored soils, crops, livestock, only restoration of hope in all those years. There's an old adage that goes like this: if you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, then by all means go for it. If there's no risks and lots of opportunities to benefit, don't hold back, give it all you've got. So to my house of friends, just to finish up, Inkaga Kunnanjaki Wudse Atanabaya, the things which befell Niger will come to you, so decisive action is needed now.
The conference gave room for self-appraisal, scorecard check, adjust and re-strategize, map out action plans to launch into the field. To raise more awareness, the project initiated radio programs on Efeminar in Hausa language to educate farmers about this practice in northern states.
Looking at the contents of what is going to be discussed here, a lot of good ideas are going to be discussed. A lot of ideas are going to be generated on how to overcome and address the challenge of land degradation in our society. So once again, I wish all of us here successful deliberations. And with these few words, I want to, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most high, declare this important conference open. Thank you.
The planting model in Dadinkowa village of Geisho ward in Barde local government of Yobe state can best be described as avenue tree planting. EverGreening Network for Forest and Land Restoration in Nigeria engaged with communities in Yobe state, and their need to restore the land was prioritized. Avenue tree planting took place in Dadinkowa village of Barde local government to increase tree covers in an almost treeless community. Although faced with different challenges such as water scarcity, trees planted within beneficiaries' houses survived, much better than trees on the roadside, where there were some losses arising from trampling by cattle and lack of water.
Planting the trees was a smooth one. It was done during the raining season. Water wasn't an issue then. However, as soon as the raining season was over, the challenge became very visible. Our community is on an international cattle route. A minimum of 2,000 to 3,000 cattle passes through our village every day. The protective basket was destroyed because of constant movement of cattle, thereby exposing seedlings to be browsed upon. There is no water. The functional borehole here only works for about 30 minutes before the generator is turned off. As a result, the seedlings planted on the streets suffered drought and browsing and couldn't make it, except for a few. However, those planted within the households all survived, reason being that it was easier to be tended to by the owners of the house. You can see where I'm standing. These are fresh footprints of cattle. This is what we see every day. It is difficult for any tree seedling to survive under such environment. Perhaps, maybe the route could be redirected other than passing through our village. The urgent help we need is that of water.
It has been very, very successful. You can see I'm from this part of the country, that is the Drylands area. I know how much we are going through. I know how much degraded the area is, and I'm so happy that I thought that there are few people that have concern about what is happening, but to my realization, up there are so many people that have concern, genuine concern, and one of such is the EverGreening Alliance, and this demonstrates how much concern they have shown and how successful this movement is. Let me give you a short story of a village in Sokoto State that they woke up one morning and found out that they had been consumed by sand in the sand dune completely. So they had to be relocated some other places. That's just to tell you how serious the issue of land degradation or environmental abuse is as far as this region is concerned. Now, if you ask the people, long time ago, when they want to fetch firewood, it's a matter of going just some few distance behind their backyard and they collect whatever they want to collect. When you are ill, you just walk at the backyard, get the herbs you want to get as herbal medicine. But today, if you want to fetch firewood, you have to go kilometers. Today, if you want to have herbs for medicinal purposes, you have to go kilometers. Issue of water, even the yield you are obtaining from our farms is an indicator, it's a testimony of how bad the situation is.
Thank you so much. In fact, I cannot appreciate the embassy of the government of Germany and Abuja enough, because they took the initiative to say, yes, we are interested in this kind of work. We want to show that the government of Germany is interested in issues of climate change. They're interested to save people's livelihoods. So I'm very grateful to Deputy Ambassador Regina Hess at the point of time. She was able to help us move this initiative forward. And I'm indebted to the new ambassador, to the ambassador of Germany in Nigeria and Abuja. We thank you all for leading this movement, leading this change that is happening in this part of the world, and for saving people, for bringing a new mindset. That is where the solution starts. If the mindset is changed, then we can change the world. So thank you to the people of Germany. Thank you to every other donor from across the world that will be joining this movement, because we need to save the African Sahel. And let's start with Nigeria, which is the largest black country in the world. Let's start with Nigeria, that is a nation that has opportunity and potential. We can make this happen. We can regreen Nigeria together. Thank you very much.
Yes. Before the end of the conference, there were groups set up in order to come up with proposals towards addressing the issues raised during the conference. So I want to say that before the next conference, we should be able to articulate our position as far as land restoration in this part of the country is concerned. So I'm assuring you that we are going to walk the talk. Whatever we have said here is not only going to be food for thought, but it's going to be food for work. That I'm assuring you.
You see, I was so happy for this EverGreen Network for forest and land restoration that is coming up. It is timely. I'm ever ready to support it, and that's why I'm here. Against so many hurdles, I'm here. And I feel we can join hands together. And I've given my candid advice, and our brothers from every part of the country that were invited here, definitely I know them, and I know the confidence we have on them. We will provide some recommendations for further consideration, either by EverGreen, the federal government, the state, or anybody who is willing to partner in this journey to make our environment safer and much better. And we want people to see it also from the humanitarian as well as from the religious aspect of it, so that all the adherents of both Islam and Christianity will be able to do what is expected of them for the benefit of their world and also for the benefit of their hereafter. So I'm really happy, and I want to see it growing much stronger, and it is doable. And I assure you that many of the adherents of Islam and Christianity will embrace it, as long as it is done faithfully and it is done with all the respect and necessary consideration of inclusion of those that matters within the stakeholders. I assure you the result will be that very good. Some of us had already had some target to do this workout or 3 workout in my own state. We are hoping that in about 3 years to come, we'll be able to reduce the poverty of that particular state with about 25%. And it is doable from our research, from our calculations.
Just by planting of trees?
Just by planting of tree and maintaining, because in planting the tree, you create a value chain. When you create a value chain, that value chain may be nutritious, may be ethical, may be medicinal, and maybe directly to an economic. So look, the issue of tree, for we the Muslims, the Prophet said, if you have a tree to plant and the resurrection day is going to be in the next second, plant that tree. Plant that tree. Then if you are going to plant a tree and the resurrection is the next 1 second, you will ask yourself, what is the essence of that tree? And why did he make example with that tree? Because in tree, there is more than what you can think of. All what we are seeing, we are still yet to exploit the various components, the economic, the social, the health or medical aspect of tree. We are yet to exploit it. But take any single tree, discuss about it, research on it, you will continue to discover what you don't expect in tree.
So any network or any effort to address this issue and to involve the community is a welcome development. That's why we're here. Sinus is very much ready, and will give, the Emirate Council will give all its effort, all our ward heads, our village heads, our district heads, who are within the communities and who are leaders in these communities, where the environmental activities take place. We want to involve them to address this problem.